So my light painting walkthrough coming up right after the intro. Hey, what's going on YouTube? My name is Mo, a car photographer from Bahrain, and if it's your first time around this channel, you'd like to learn all about car photography and Photoshop, then go ahead and subscribe now so you don't miss out on all the cool stuff that I create every week. Now before I start, I'd like to start with you. What do you do for a living? Do you do photography as a full-time job? Or maybe a car photographer? Let me know in the comment section below. I'm eager to know. Alright, so you guys will have to forgive me. I shot this a while ago and I can't recall how I edited this photo exactly. The details, I just forgot how I did it. But anyway, I was following Kirk's Bentley's technique. Now if you're not familiar with Kirk, head out to Automotive Lighting, which is this website here. Register with the website and you'll be able to access all of these techniques from the equipment itself. I'm pretty sure that you've watched my previous video on the light painting kit that I use. Now Kirk done a lot of great videos over here explaining the shots, the multiple shots that you need to actually take in order to combine everything into Photoshop later on. So you've got the rim light, the high pass, mid pass, and so on forth. So I followed this technique to actually get this final result. So make sure to check it out. All right, so let's have a quick look on the shots that I took. So I think that's the high pass. Now I can't recall exactly which one is which, but I've rated these, so I'm assuming I've used these for the final edit. Nope. This one over here, this one, and I'm pretty sure I've used these for the back plate. So I've got the back plate, the light brakes, and so on forth. All right, let's head into Photoshop, see what I've done there. I have to admit, I'm not quite sure why I followed this kind of workflow, but I hope you understand what I did in here and it would benefit you. Alright, so let's look at the first layer, and it seems that I've took one of the photos as a base layer, one of the light painting, because I see that the light is reflecting here, right? And instead of using a mask, which I always do recommend using a mask, I did the opposite exactly. So I traced around the car with a pen tool. Now I know this is very dark, and if it was very dark, I always use a guide layer to see through. So it's basically a curves that I pull the midtones and the highlights up, so I can see below and beneath the car. All right, so that was the first layer, and then the next layers, the ones that I'm going to show you, are all set into lighten, and then I added a mask to control the light spell in the image. All right, so let's look at the next layer, and let me disable the mask. As you can see, I've set the blending mode to lighten, and I used the mask tool to remove or mask out anything that I didn't really want in terms of light spell. And it's very odd because I didn't add the base layer or the back plate yet, and I did it on another layer, which I'm going to show you in a bit. Alright, so the next layer was supposed to be the rim or the wheels layer, but I didn't quite like that, so I added another layer and I masked in the entire car. Now don't ask me why I did that. I just felt that that looked better as a base layer to start with for light painting. Actually, I think that kind of completed 70% of how the car would have looked like. So let's have a look at the layer without the mask. Now you can tell that I was holding the light away from the car because there is no spillovers within this photo, and this kind of worked out for me, and I could have used this as the base layer because I really like how the ground looks like in here, but I've ended up using some other ground. Alright, so moving onward. Now these two were supposed to be the back or rear light layers. However, I didn't end up using them, and I'll tell you why in a bit. Alright, so this entire group is the atmosphere layer, and it really consists of one main photo, and the rest are just few adjustments here and there. So let me enable this main photo over here, and if I just select this layer on its own, you can see it's one of the ambient shots that I showed you earlier in Lightroom. And all what I did in here I set the blending mode to lighten, and it brought back the lit parts of the other layers. Now I really liked the way the photo looked. It also added a bit of realism to it because I could see a bit of, you know, the ambient reflections on the back of the car. So what I did here is very basic. I emphasized the lights on the top, the lights here and the lights there. So if I enable these layers, you can see that these lights just became brighter. And the way I did it, I traced again around these areas with the pen tool, and I masked a curve out of it. And remember when I said about the backlight that I didn't like? I ended up using this layers, or the base layers, or the ambient layer, because I really just liked the way it looked like. Now, what I really felt this photo was missing, it was a bit dark around this area. It's very subjective. I know that people would find it just okay. Some people would find it very dark. However, I just used one of the layers that I had, and I've set the blending mode to lighten, but the opacity down to 38. So if I slide the opacity all the way to 100%, you will see the actual layer. But I really just wanted it to blend, and so I had the opacity on 38%. Now moving onwards, I still felt that, well, that entire group was a bit dark, especially at the bottom, and I added another curves adjustment layer, and this time I used a graduated filter from the bottom to top to just brighten that up and mask out this portion of the photo. Now remember when I said that the back reflection were adding a bit of realism to the photo? I retouched some of it because these were a bit bothering me. I liked these, but these were in my face. So now if I recall correctly, I've removed these using the clone stamp tool and perhaps the healing brush tool. I can see I didn't do a very good job. I can still see that there is a spot down here, but that can be easily addressed. Now, as I said, please forgive me. I can't recall exactly which tools I've used, but that's something that I'm working on. I usually name my layers better sometimes, but in this case I did not. I just called it retouch and I kind of ruined it. I can't recall which tools I've used. Anyway, I added a dodge and burn layer, and if I turn it off and on again, you can see I just actually burned around these areas just to bring the shape back to the car instead of it being flat. Especially that I've used kind of a flat angle when I light painted the car, and I've used it as a main light source. It kind of flattened out these areas that, you know, that really shows the shape of the car. So I burnt them out just to show them up. Now I can see that I've used a bit of smoke over here, but really it's just an atmosphere smoke, just a bit here and there, barely visible. And I really didn't like the way that window looked, so I cloned this window up and I pasted it down here, and I added a level just to darken it. Now so far so good. Now the car looks okay. However, I didn't like the tone of whites that I was getting. I still felt that the car wasn't as bright as it should be, and I added a smart filter. Let me pull out the camera raw file, and you can tell from the raw filter that I've just, you know, increased the whites, and that brought the whites back to the car. Now this is the before and this is the after. Alright, so I forgot to enable two layers, which were these that I've actually used for the back plate. Alright, so this is the before, this is the after, and then I added another layer for clarity, just to add a little bit of contrast, not too much. Let's open it up. It's +13 camera raw, and that's about it. Now on the next layer, it seems that I've used the healing brush tool to get rid of the reflection, because when you see something like this, it seems like I've used something automated, and that's mainly the healing brush tool that causes such effect. Now the next layer, and for some reason I only use this layer to fix this part of the car, which is really tiny and you can barely see it. And then on the layer afterwards, what a messy edit, I have to say. I fixed the top portion of the photo here using the clone stamp tool, definitely, and perhaps a bit of brushing and painting and then adding noise. Now with the next layers, I didn't like this line over here and I had to get rid of, including this one over here as well. And the good thing, I kind of named that layer. It says paint right, which most likely painting this part of the car. So I actually painted with a brush. I selected a sample and I painted it. And if you don't know about this technique, I'll leave a link to one of Alex's video in the description below. Make sure to check it out. And this way I fixed that halo issue that I had. And on the next layer, I know, don't judge me, that was a really terrible workflow. And I did the same thing over here. So I perhaps traced with a pen tool and I just painted it with white. And paint left is obviously this part. And you can see it, I kind of did a really good job over here. You need to give me that. Now, it's easily to miss out some details when you're doing such technique when you shoot a car. For example, you see this part down here? I missed it during the edit, and thank God I saw it and I addressed it. So I copied this from another layer and it now looks better. Woohoo! Almost 3 layers and I'm good to go. Actually 2, because in this one I've again fixed the whites. I just didn't feel the whites were white enough. And to address this, I just added a selective color and then selected the whites. Move all the sliders to the left. Just keep the black where it is, and that's it. So let's have a look at the before. And that's the after. Now the last layer is just a color lookup layer for color grading purposes. And if I enable this, this is the before and this is the after. I've used one of the LUTs that I previously showed in my color grading video. I'll leave a link to that video in the description below. Make sure to check it out. Alright YouTube, that was pure mess. It's a mess, I admit. I didn't do a really good job within the workflow of the edit, but I kind of like the end result, if that makes any sense. Alright, so if you have any question, please leave me a comment in the comment section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, follow me on Instagram, and I'll see you in the next video.